What do Colonel Sanders, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Chris Martin all have in common? Well, Colonel Sanders is famous for fried chicken, while Gwyneth and Chris are famously decoupled. And this is where our story starts. I was recently speaking with Martin McDermott, the co-founder of Major Digital, when he mentioned Headless CMS. So I did what any reasonable person does when another drops a buzzword into a conversation. I asked, what do you mean by Headless CMS? Let's skip to the point. So I asked Martin what he meant by Headless CMS. Now here's a rule of thumb. If you have to ask someone what they mean when they use a word, you're probably dealing with a buzzword. And Headless CMS, this is definitely a buzzword. After explaining what he meant, Martin allowed us out, well, this is kind of a bit of a silly phrase, really. Now, as a quick reminder, I put buzzwords into 3 categories. The first is useful shorthand. Saying ROI is a lot easier than saying return on investment every time you're talking about it. The nonsense, like zero-party data. And number 3, the smokescreen, like ABM. 3 little letters, a dozen definitions. You can check out my takes on zero-party data and ABM on my YouTube channel. So the buzzword, Headless CMS, sits comfortably in category 3, the smokescreen. You could argue it sometimes drifts into category 2, complete and utter nonsense. Because let's be honest, what do you actually think of when you hear the word headless? If you're like me, you think of chickens. Specifically the phrase running around like a headless chicken. When I was young, my father owned a small holding and we had chickens, so this was normal. But in the broader context, running around like a headless chicken is another way of saying chaos. Now, if you don't know why that phrase exists, Google it. It may put you off fried chicken forever, but it will not make Headless CMS sound any more reassuring. So how did we get here? Now, based on my research, I want to be really clear about one thing. Headless CMS is a real architectural approach. It's a real thing. This is not vaporware. But somewhere along the way, it became shorthand for modern, flexible, future-proof. Which raises a question. How did a phrase usually associated with chaos become a proxy for control, elegance, and clarity? Because once this buzzword appeared, it started spawning other buzzwords. So listen how it gets sold. Decoupled front end, API first, single source of truth. These phrases sound modern. They sound flexible. They sound almost inevitable. But wait! We just used 3 more buzzwords to explain the buzzword Headless CMS. Decoupled? You mean like Gwyneth and Chris? Is this a conscious or unconscious language choice? And marketers, come on, we all love a single source of truth. But let me get this straight. What you're telling me here is that there are marketers using nonsensical buzzword smokescreens to sell a complex technology to other marketers. Wow, that's dark. Now, I am a marketer and I love a good buzzword. And going back to the categories, category 1 buzzwords are useful shorthand. These buzzwords make communication easier. As a communicator, I'm all for making communications easier. Category 1 buzzwords compress complexity and they help teams align quickly. But abstraction has a side effect. The more abstract the language, the easier it is for stakeholders just to nod along, relying on their own definitions, not understanding the specifics of what the speaker is actually saying. So fewer hard questions get asked in the sales process. Questions like, well, how many channels do we actually support? Or, who owns the front end? Or, wait, what skills will we need to add to marketing to support this architecture? Or, what are their tools we need to buy? What is the total cost of ownership? Buzzwords smooth deals and increase deal velocity. They also conveniently gloss over the bits that sellers may not want to highlight. In this case, the buzzwords help sell more licenses. Here is my uncomfortable question. Are the buyers actually publishing to a wide variety of channels? If the answer is yes, then headless might make sense. But if the answer is no, they're not buying an architecture, they're chasing the shiny. And that leads to a problem. Selling anything to the wrong companies is great in the short term. But in the long term, it makes onboarding the client a nightmare. It dooms the renewal from the very start of the relationship. It leads to lower margins. It has terrible impact on your brand reputation and it makes it harder to sell in the future. So let's be clear, this is not about laziness, it's about convenience over clarity, and the marketers of Headless falling victim to their own language. If tough questions are not being asked during the sales process, then the feedback for lost deals is not getting back to marketing. So marketers do not have the information they need to refine both the ICP and persona definitions. In the end, this over-reliance on shorthand underestimates how much explanation the buyers actually need, which impacts on your content strategy. And here's the irony. Buzzwords used well are supposed to make a marketer's job easier. But buzzwords used badly often make it harder. It creates misconceptions. It fosters disinformation. And it erects barriers that you, the marketer, working with sales, will have to work hard to overcome in the future. The buzzword Headless CMS does not exist in isolation. It begets more buzzwords: decoupled, single source of truth, composable, future-proof. Now, future-proof probably deserves an episode on its own because nothing is future-proof unless your time horizon is about a week. Here's the real takeaway. Headless CMS started as a legitimate architectural approach to real-world problems. But once it became the buzzword shorthand for modern and flexible, linguistic precision disappeared. And when precision disappears, confusion fills that gap. If a buyer cannot explain what a decoupled front end is, they are not buying the architecture, they're buying vibes. So, I'd love to know your take. Feel free to DM me or like and leave a comment below. Encouragement, advice, topic ideas are always welcome. And if you like this episode, follow and share. Join me next time when I'll cut through more marketing, B2B buzzword BS. Until then, stay safe, make good choices, and keep skipping to the point.